you, man. I don't know what you're talking about. You need to get your shit for real, man. For real. Yeah. Yo, man. Remember that girl up in the front row? For real, for real.
What's up, guys? How's everybody doing? Good afternoon, good evening, good morning. Give you guys a second to hop in. Taking a quick short in BTC. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Okay, you guys hear me? Hear me all right? How's the sound? How is the sound? Just give me some feedback on the sound and then we'll get it started. Once I see that the sound is good, just because yesterday someone said there was a little bit of an echo. Okay, what's going on, guys? Welcome to the stream. My name is Ryan, aka Kennering Clark, and on behalf of myself and my partner Josh Rager, thank you guys for tuning in. We're the co-founders of BlockRoots. If you're not a subscriber to the BlockRoots YouTube channel, make sure that you hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, all that stuff. Just going to be kind of shooting the shit during the stream, take some trades. I currently just entered into a decent sized short position. My average price now is around 34,688. I think that we probably develop a little bit more up here and then get a little bit more of a pullback, hopefully back down to around 34.5. Definitely just want to get out of this trade if it starts moving against me. Just as a reminder from the get-go, none of this is to be taken as financial advice. This is strictly for entertainment purposes only. Just my opinions on the market, right? How I am looking at things. Probably just going to flatten this if we take out this high and don't reject. Going to flatten that real quick. How I'm looking at things, and that's that. Right? Again, none of this is to be taken as financial advice. Why didn't that just flatten? Yeah. So that was annoying. For a second, the QT didn't close the position. So for some reason lately, there's been a little bit of a lag between QT and some of the exchanges. I hope that that's fixed, because I just went to go flatten that position and it took more than a split second to do it. All right. So again, not financial advice. As you can tell on the upper left-hand corner of the screen, we are partners with Phemex. So Phemex Exchange, they offer spot, they offer contracts, and they offer a generous yield if you park USDT there. So welcome, everybody. If you're new to this, what you're looking at on the left side of your screen is the DOM. So this is the ladder. This is where I will be placing orders very quickly on this, and we'll just be looking at the chart for this stream. So I mean, right now you could see that I have I've been messing around some other things for what is a very crabby market. So I've gone back and forth between using the standard deviation bands for trading alts. I've went over this before, trading alts in the low time frames, and I'm using these with a combination of what I normally use, which is profile and order flow, just because price has been more or less stuck within a pretty confined, I would say it moves within pretty confined ranges. And when you get these outlier spikes, right, whether it's deviation to range high or range low, a lot of the times we're seeing it's not leading to continuation. And if anything, what I'm looking to do is see if I can improve on what my normal mean reversion type trading would be on the low time frames, just because, one, there's not a whole lot going on right now, and I do have the time, I guess, to start looking into maybe improving on systems, and two, because again, conditions right now are I guess I would say they're not favorable for continuation. They're favorable for just this mean reversion within what seems to be like 2 to 3% ranges. I'm going to go ahead and probably place this short on again, because right now it looks like we have a little bit of exhaustion up here. Tagged on a little. I'll place a little bit more higher. I just want to get in the habit of taking some trades during the streams. It's nothing serious. As you can see, I just tagged on a portion of it. It's 100,000 contracts. I haven't been hitting it with too much lately. I'll probably trade anywhere from probably 500,000 to a million, 500,000 a million contracts, but I'll be tagging them on at market and ideally removing these positions passively. All right, so let me just make sure the chat is still good. All right. So yesterday I did a stream, and well, first of all, how's everybody feeling? Did you see the Citibank news this morning? How are we feeling about the market? We bullish? We bearish? What's our opinion right now? Tag on a little bit more. Now we took yesterday's highs. So if we're going to be trading back within yesterday's range, I'll probably tag on some more then. I mean, this is a good amount of this move was, like I said, I don't know, this kind of squeeze that we have, it wasn't as convincing because it looks like towards the high we had a lot of this sort of these air pockets. So as you can see in the move up, it's kind of thin. You have some good volume, but you have a lot of zero prints essentially. So it's kind of thin. Again, some participation at the highs, but still a good amount of these candles were kind of, I say air pockets, kind of gappy. So we'll see if we could get some mean reversion. And we are, I think, looking decent right now. The selling that's coming in, it looks like there's a little bit of longs taking profits. So we'll leave that on. It's a decent tag at 34.911. I'll give this some time to develop. All right. So how are we feeling? We bullish, bearish? Paraguay news? No, I didn't hear any Paraguay news, but there was some good news with regards to Citibank, and them offering crypto products, I think, as part of their wealth management suite. So that's interesting because, you know, Citi essentially was, Citi was a bank that was denying people for not too long ago, excuse me. So for Citibank now to, to open up their own crypto arm, I think it's obvious. Where is this? I shared this recently. I think it's obvious that every bank is going in this direction, right? So Citi starts crypto unit and wealth management division. I think everyone is going in this direction because I had to make sure the stream is public. Because all they need to do initially is, one, they need to make sure that they're not listing things that are not safe as far as regulatory oversight goes. So they're not listing things that are the equivalent to securities, okay, that are unregulated right now. And two, they have to make sure that they have the plumbing so that they are not, by offering these products, putting their clients at risk to a certain extent. So they have to make sure they have all of these things figured out. For a long time, the biggest problem with crypto was custody, obviously. So figuring this out, coming up with solutions for these things are, it's kind of a no-brainer to get involved after that point, because at that point, you are able to generate fees, right? They're able to generate management fees. They're able to, if they are market making, if they are essentially acting as a broker, you can imagine how they can make money by offering another product on top of what they currently offer. Okay. Just going through the chat real quick. Feeling a bit of FOMO. So let's look at where we currently sit right now. So I am still in. You can see this is the short position I'm in right now. All right, we'll leave that on. See if this develops a little bit further. As far as the higher time frame chart goes, so I was messing around with some things this morning. I was trying to pull up the stock. I pulled up regular RSI by accident. One sec. All right, so I went over this in yesterday's stream, but yesterday's stream unfortunately wasn't a public stream, so I felt pretty stupid after that. But we have the midpoint of the range. We have the lows that I absolutely wouldn't want to revisit again, and I don't think you have to go to the extent of the absolute low to really be in trouble. I think if we're below 31,000, excuse me, if you're below 3100, you're fucked. But if you're below 31,000, I think that it's a really poor look. So you would want to see that if we came back down to this level, that we absolutely find support there rather than gaining acceptance back within what was ultimately a wick. And this 31 level extends further back as really kind of the Pico lows besides, the initial May 19th dump. So you can see that we came back down here more than once. So I think we're in between, resistance currently and what would act as, logically would act as support. I didn't end up getting long for long at all yesterday. I never took the swing off of the return back to this sort of value area high of this little cluster. But it ended up leaving us with this move. All right, so you have, let me just take the profiles off. We have a return back to this level. As I said yesterday, I would wanted to see that this was a much faster response. But right afterward, you kind of have another return and then a reclaim, and you're left with, this pattern that we see quite often, which is, how a support gets tested, how a resistance a lot of times gets tested before it ultimately price, rebounds off that level and leads to a longer move. And a lot of times it's that pullbacks don't look something like this and then just continue. A lot of the times, you have the pullback, everyone gets involved at this level, price kind of gravitates its way up. You have some longs taking profit off this level, finds its way back down, and then grabs the liquidity below that low, right? So any kind of really tight stops sitting below there are taken out before finally reversing. So a lot of the times you are left with things that do look like this, right? So taking out that low before continuing up. And this is one of the, on the low time frames, I take these trades all the time. So that's why it's really good to learn how to trade the lower time frame chart, because you see the same things in the higher time frame. So what I'm talking about is last night, I ended up getting long, and this was, where are we going back to? This was back here twice. All right, so we have, and I went over this in Blockroot a couple of times. Let me just change the profile so it's a little bit lighter. Short's looking decent right now, right? Yeah, so we are still in a short position right now. So what you end up having is you have a low put in, whether it's a consolidate. It's better. I like, it's cleaner to me when the consolidation occurs lower and then you get a squeeze. I will play these lows again multiple times. So I just went right back to this trade because this is one of the last trades I remember taking last night. And you get a squeeze up, right? Take out a high, price breaks down, kind of pukes back towards the lows. And this low becomes an area of interest that a lot of people are focused on the low time frames, because a lot of people are just assuming that the next leg is going to lead to continuation, even on the low time frames. I'm going to go ahead and flatten this trade out real quick. So get out of it. See if I could get out passively real quick here. No, let me just put on the... There we go. Looks like we're getting away from it now. There we go. Filled. Nope, not filled. Before we bounce back, I'll just close that out. All right. It's tough to pay attention to trades while I'm talking about what we're talking about in the stream. So, I mean, as you can see, there's a little bit of volume now trapped there at that low. So I don't want to hang on to any kind of scalp when we start to see this, right? So if I am scalping from, where was my entry? My entry for that last trade was 843. My entry is right over here. Okay, if I am taking a lower time frame scalp and I start to see that there is some absorption at the low, in this case what you have, and I'm not really managing it and paying attention to it like I should, then I'm probably going to exit the trade, because I am just looking to take these small bites. What was I saying? So a return back to this level, right? A lot of the times you're going to have, a secondary bounce, maybe 2-3 bounces, because price is really just more or less range bound. It's moving within these very tight sort of crabby, crab kind of behavior, crab market, these very tight ranges, right? And everyone is kind of looking for the breakout trade. Flatten, I just mean that I close the trade out, So, I started doing these streams with the intention of trading during the stream, but talking about something and trading at the same time is actually pretty fucking difficult, because I'm trying to keep my eyes on the trade, and I'm also, so let's see, do we have a setup right here? I'm also, yeah, let me just get long real quick. Son of a bitch. Okay. Let me see if I can get filled on the bid real quick. All right. I have an order right down here right now, but I'm really just looking for, I'm setting my take profit on another screen. Just a bounce back. Where, come on. Sorry guys, it is actually pretty difficult to do this at the same exact time. There we go. All right, take profit is set. I still have, I'm filled for now another 100,000 contracts. And let's see if we can get another pullback and bid this up. Excuse me, guys. I'm trying to do this at the same time as streaming. One sec. So just long right here. All right. So what I was saying was price is kind of stuck in these very tight ranges. You might have a squeeze out of the range. A lot of the times what we're seeing is you're returning back to that range. And so I'll take the same trade right back at this level without expecting that this is going to lead to continuation. Does that make sense? I shared this trade I shared this idea in the last few streams. So anyway, I'll leave that trade on really quickly because I have to take profit. We'll see if I get filled for that. Otherwise, we'll just make sure that we're stopped out in case. As far as the high time frame goes, the take of this high, the next area is the midpoint of the range, right? So again, I've been saying 35.5, 36, midpoint of the range, right? So not really the best place to get long into. What I would want to see ideally is that we flip this as support. If we flip the top side of the structure as support, then I will look to the next logical area, which would be the range high. But I'm not taking anything into the midpoint of the range, right? And I say that as I'm in a long right now, but I'm in a scalp, right? It's not a long that I have the intention of holding. My take profit is right up here, okay? So right now on the high time frame, you want to see that that we have this daily close back within the range, right? So yesterday's daily close was pretty limp. Yesterday's daily close was pretty limp, and today is a much more bullish candle, right? But again, back towards the midpoint of this range. So on the high time frame, right, this was a good area to long, but the first initial response wasn't as attractive as we would like. Let's see. I think I am about to hit my take profit. Come on, come on, come on. Give me that. Give me that. Do not. Oh my God. Come on. Close this out real quick. All right. So it is difficult to keep track of thought and do the stream at the same time. I apologize, guys. I'll lay off the trades right now because we're probably going back up to the high with that one, just because it's difficult to do both at the same time. All right. So as far as this goes, today is the first kind of bullish behavior that really bulls wanted to see, right? Yesterday's candle, not the most attractive close above a previous daily low, but today's candle is a bit more, it provokes a little bit more optimism, I would say. But again, the midpoint of the range is kind of the next logical target if you got long off of the lows. I don't use any leverage when I trade. I don't really use any leverage when I trade. I mean, peak bull market, I might use 1.5 or 2x my normal exposure, but I don't really use any leverage. So, those last two trades were 300,000 contracts. I don't think I got filled on the last long, but the first short was 3, and then the last long ended up only getting filled for 2. But that is that's not my full position size, and that's not using any leverage. Okay, so let's regain our thoughts. If you guys have any questions, ask them right now. That might be a good idea to go over some questions. Let me see. As far as, let's just look at the last day. Okay, there we go. Cool. One sec. Let me pull this over here. All right, come on. What's going on? I want to turn that off. That's my alert. Oh my god. Sorry guys, 1 second. All right already. Jesus Christ. What is going on? Where is this fucking alert? I don't have any alerts now. Trading View, you suck. Alright, there we go. No? Oh my god. Please, don't come back on. Nice move so far. So good idea to close that short out and then grab that long really quickly. What was I saying? I'm getting thrown off, guys. I just wanted to hop on the stream though, make sure that I did one after yesterday's was not public. Okay. So anyway, back to what I was talking about just a second ago. You know, more or less the midpoint of the range, right? We'll put on the profiles just so you can get an idea. I don't want to switch it up and pull up EXO right now, but looking at the last 2 days, we've been in more or less range-bound behavior. You know, we have a fairly balanced day. Just until now, we were stuck within the prior day's high and low, right? Decent move down, right? Decent move back, but still back within the prior day's range. So pretty much bracketed, I would say a bracketed market, right? You had bracketed market, puke, reacceptance back within the same sort of consolidation structure, right? Range high, range low. Breakout above, more of a squeeze, ranging behavior. And now it looks like maybe potentially acceptance above, and our target would be around 36,000, 35,500, 36,000. 1 sec. Let's see. So far, this high is being sold pretty hard, but it's holding. Might see this squeeze up to around 35,500, 36. All right, 1 sec. I'm just going through the chat on a different screen. I think that in the future, what I will do is I'll just, and I said this before, I will just stream me trading without talking. Or stream me trading, but no plan of talking about the higher time frame, because that was honestly pretty difficult to manage what was going on while I'm trying to talk about the bigger picture. It kind of doesn't make sense to try to do those two things at the same time. Let me just go through this chat. It's Quant Tower. The exchanges I monitor on EXO are Bybit and BitMEX. Long-term view on the market. I'm a higher time frame Bitcoin bull, but much higher time frame. Like investment time horizons are 5 to 10 years. They're not, 5 months to 1 to 2 years. So I don't necessarily know if we're just going to take off from here. There's good reason to believe that we're not going to. I think that I'm sticking to my thesis that end of Q3, Q4, we start to see some improvement. But I don't want to say that the bottom is in because we've had bullish news, no positive response. The market hasn't been across the board, has been kind of shit. So I don't want to just say that we've put in a bottom because we retook a previous daily level. It's not, again, the initial response that we had off of the lows, right? So that after that first candle, you wanted to see that you have something more along the lines of this immediately for a bottom candle, right? So you want something that's engulfing pretty much. So yesterday's candle, the day prior, you have a really good response because the area that we came into was a good area to expect a reaction. But it doesn't mean that you're going to have a complete reversal from that. As I've said now for a really long time, if we're back within this range, I want to see that we actually have a higher low formed on the daily within this structure before I can start getting, I could start defining, I think, a longer term position. Meaning, if we have a pullback here and we're able to hold this daily level and we have sort of a higher time frame, swing low within this structure, then I would say, yeah, we're probably looking back up at the range highs. And then aside from that, the other trade is, let's say that happens too fast for me to even take advantage of, or let's say it happened right away. The opportunity I would look for would be holding the top side of this structure. This is now over a month long that we've been within a range. So you just kind of have to expect that if you re-accept within that range, that you're going to fall back into that same behavior, which is, moving from high to mid to low, from low to mid to high, and just playing those sort of three key areas within the structure. I don't want to say, like, which a lot of people are doing right now, that because we took out these lows, that because this is, the fourth attempt at the low, that it means that bears are, at this point, they've thrown everything they have at it and that the bottom is in. I think that you should require a little bit more from price at this point. Although, technically this structure it looks similar to how that would set up. I think the best case scenario would have been for this to occur earlier. So for me, it's almost like it's a little too late, but we'll see. That's why we have levels and we define them in advance. Just grab the chat again. I mean, on the high time frame, the 20 period moving average still falling below the weekly 20 period moving average, and that one I just showed you was on the daily. So it's very clear that maybe bears are losing a little bit of control because they're not able to pull this outside of this range and push us down further, but it's still kind of a stalemate. If anything, it's not the case that suddenly bulls are completely back in control. Yesterday's price action was kind of shit. We didn't get the kind of bullish response that you would want to see. Yeah, the risk reward it's not as attractive from 36, because if you're taking a trade off at 36, it's like you're taking a trade off the midpoint. I never really like to get too involved in this area. I'd rather take profits into here. So I'd rather say, any kind of break above here, break down is a good area to take profits into in the middle of the range. I don't necessarily know if I would want to get long above here, but I probably will, honestly. So the reason why the risk reward is not that attractive is because, yeah, the invalidation of the trade is where at that point. If we break up and above, invalidation is, I'd say you'd have to probably keep it kind of tight somewhere down here because, you're relying on the midpoint of this range to hold back up to the high. Reaccepting back down here probably pulls you back down to the structure. But I don't know, at the same time, a break above 36, maybe it chops around a little bit longer and still leads to a move back up to the high. And at that point, it's a little bit hard to define your position, right? If you're placing stops. Do you open trades fully sized at mid-range, or is your trading smaller? It depends. I mean, it depends on the kind of reaction we have at the range, what kind of move we have through it to begin with. Right now, the price action you would want to see off of a bottom, while this was very bullish, that was a lot of a shift in positioning from shorts just probably getting blasted at that point. So if this was really bullish, I think you would have continued to put in that really strong price action instead of having this kind of droopy shit that we have going on, and this kind of high effort but low result activity we're seeing into the midpoint. So it depends, right? If we were to rip above, I'd probably go harder than if we are now able to claim above it. We'll see, because previously we've reclaimed the weekly, the midpoint of the range. right? So even if we just sort of we're at this point, right? Extending the point of control. This is still sort of the midpoint of the range. Previously, we did retake previous. Oh my God, how many times are you going to say previous? Previously, we did do something similar to what we're doing now. I just said it again. We ripped above. We retested this area, and this should have very well. One of the first things that might have came to mind is, okay, take the lows, reclaim the top side of this, previous cluster, previous composite, treating it as support. Now we're looking back up to the highs. So you define your position somewhere around here, but price broke down within that structure and then, rips up to the high after taking some stops. I think that within the range, you just have to expect that gaps are going to get filled. So any kind of gaps that you do have, your stop should be somewhere outside of that. Or, if you're like me, you don't always have a stop on the position. You have more of a tail risk stop that kind of just makes sure that your account doesn't get, one of your accounts doesn't really take a big hit. My average trade time, it depends. If I'm scalping, could be anywhere from 30 seconds to 5 minutes. Okay. Yeah, reach out to me with a message. Georgette, see what you got going. What kind of volume profile? So I use TPO, I use volume profile as well to make sure that they're confirming each other, but from exchange to exchange you're gonna have different profiles, so you got to remember that. You might have one exchange that has a volume aberration, the other doesn't, so the profile looks very different. So you want to make sure that your profile and your TPO are more or less lining up. Oh, thank you. I should have read this earlier. Mute the tab itself by clicking, by right clicking. One sec. Yeah, just a scalping stream would be good while I just kind of narrate. Podcast. Yeah, I've done podcasts. Yeah, I've been trading now for, I want to say it's either 14 or 15 years. And I honestly, I can't tell if it's 14 or 15 now. I was about to dox my age, but I'm pretty old. Funding. So I've gone over funding before. If market is truly bearish, the dominant trade is going to be on leverage platforms opening shorts, right? The same way when the market is sort of homogeneously long in a bull market, you can't look at funding and say it's going to turn because the long is the trade everyone wants to take. So because it's the dominant trade and the most sought after, you're going to pay a premium to be able to take it. The same works in a downtrend. You're going to have sustained funding for the most part. Now, where I think funding counts is when you have sustained funding in a downtrend and then price begins to range and then you still have that sustained increased negative funding. Because then it's like, people are still getting short. They're increasing that interest rate component because of it, and therefore maybe you have a good case for, on the high time frame, a bunch of trap positioning. Okay. So, all right. So can you explain the significance of the midpoint is, why people care about it? So midpoint, the 0.5 fib, I a lot of the times you'll notice within a range that the midpoint is where price interacts with a lot. It's kind of a thick area for liquidity. A lot of times the point of control is going to be your midpoint as well. So all these things are pretty much going to line up. The midpoint is not a good area to define a trade because it's difficult to define your risk, right? If for example, here's our range. One sec. Here's our range. Here's our mid. Price has been ranging for a while, right? We are saying current context and conditions are that price is ranging. So what has been defining the range? The extreme high, the extreme low. And these are where we're looking for mean reversion opportunities, right? This is the mean down here, essentially. Think of this as like the, your sort of Gaussian bell curve. This is the distribution of prices around it. they're coming back to this thick area. When you're taking trades off of the extremes, right, my assumption into this is that price is going to continue to range. Well, what invalidates that range is if price accepts outside of it. Okay, so that's an easy place for me to define a position. My position is that price is going to move back to the center or maybe back to the other extreme. And the invalidation of that is clearly if price is accepted outside of what has been like the governing boundaries of the range so far. Now, if you're taking a trade off the mid, right, you're taking a trade that is, very welcomed in terms of getting into it because there's a lot of liquidity usually at the mid. It's not an area where you might expect this kind of imbalanced behavior because it hasn't been a defining feature within the structure, right? The exteriors are the defining features within a range. So if we have, say, for example, price has moved up to the high, moved up to the low, moved down to the low, and now we're back at this level, sure, you could say, all right, we've touched the low now, so maybe this is a good area to get long, all right, but price could very well, before it's moving back to the high, chop around here even longer, still get back up to the high, and when I say it's difficult to define your position, there's no real invalidation to the range yet, right? The invalidation to the range exists outside of it. So where do you place your stop, right? You might place a structural stop. Let's say you have one of these sort of W patterns. All right, then your stop is here, but still, you're in an area that is, again, ripe with liquidity. It's really easy to get flat-footed, and price could still come back down here and still achieve the overall goal of coming back up to the range high before falling back into that, ranging behavior. So it's nothing can be invalidated really unless it's a, really short-term trade. And at that point, I just think in my experience, it's not as certain for me as the extremes are, right? Because this is a puke point. This is a puke point as well, right? There's a lot of liquidity that surrounds this area because, after, let's say that you're 2 rotations in, right? So 1, 2, you have people that are placing breakout stops. So breakout stops long, breakout stops short at the lows. So if price accepts outside of here, this is probably going to change, right? Whereas anything in the center of this doesn't really lead to any kind of change. So the midpoint of the range is just an area where I like to take profit into because it is very welcoming in terms of offering plenty of liquidity, but it's not an area where you can have a total, a whole bunch of directional certainty. Yeah, I am 100% focused on BTC right now. The only time I got back into alts was when we were at these lows. So I just got into DOT and SOL and I took a few trades, but that was because, BTC and alts are heavily correlated. I took the trade in BTC. It was the same kind of puke point in alts. ETH especially, same thing. If we look at ETH really quickly, I said about the alts, the thing that was a bit more attractive about the alts was that this low we were very distant from this for quite some time. So we were ranging much further up above it. So when we return to it vertically, it makes a swing failure trade that much more attractive. Whereas BTC actually, had been down at the lows multiple times. BTC has been down close to this area frequently, whereas, something like SOL, something like ETH, I was in DOT as well. The low, the bounce off of that low, we spent a lot of time ranging well above that. So when we return to it vertically, it just makes the setup, in my experience, more likely to yield positive results. So I mentioned this morning that I was trying to sharpen and Goldsby really quickly. When I'm looking at a TPO chart, for example, all right, it's the same reasoning. So getting involved at the mid, it's the same reasoning I have between the idea of getting involved at the value area high and value area low, or rather the range, the reasoning behind the range high and range low activity is the same kind of reasoning behind the value area high and value area low. This is where activity drops off. This is where the trading has been shut down. The trading, if I'm taking a trade at the range high, here's range high. My idea is that price has been ranging and that this is the area where it's shut down, right? Where, price comes up to this level, the bid doesn't follow up, buyers aren't as aggressive, maybe sellers start to get more aggressive, but the activity is shut down there. It's sort of like, again, auction market theory. You raise the price to a point where the room is no longer getting loud, no longer bidding that up. That's where it gets shut down. So when that activity is shut down, I'm expecting what price to drop. Same concept as looking at a range high between a TPO, value area high, and value area low. This is where price was most accepted. So where price is most accepted is not an area where I want to really get in position. Now sometimes that lines up perfectly between the TPO fat portion of the TPO and the midpoint of the range. I give precedent to I don't give precedent to the midpoint of a range as defined by like a fib or the 50% point as much as I do where most of the activity came in, right? Where the peak activity came in. Meaning, this is probably, for example, this right here. Okay, so just look at these two structures next to each other, and I'll tell you how they're different. This is the midpoint of this range, right? So today's range, this is the midpoint of it, okay? It's kind of more of a trending structure, but it's kind of messy. But this is the mid. This mid is a low volume node. I would probably be willing to take a position off of this mid if this was in isolation, right? If we weren't coming from a balanced period to begin with, I'd be more inclined to take a position off of this mid than this one. Okay, this one we spent a lot of time at, right? This was very accepting of prices, so it's difficult to have any kind of directional edge off of that. Whereas this low volume node, I would expect that if we revisit this area, that this would be an area where price would bounce off of. Okay, but this is stuff that we go into far more detail on the BlockRoots course, and you just have to learn by experience. The low volume nodes are going to be the areas where you're going to expect price to bounce off of and essentially sweep. So going to TV and then just looking at this on this chart, this area right here, it is, essentially it's slightly below what is the midpoint for the last 2 days. So, all right, go back to the chat real quick. I got a little lost now going on that tangent. Yeah, I don't know. I think that this probably comes back down. Oh, but what I was saying was I started trying to mess around with some different tools that in the beginning I was talking about this. With alts I was using to trade on low time frames. If I'm trading alts, a lot of the times, rather than just look at the candles and looking at something like a footprint, I'll use something like the standard deviation bands. I've shared this before. It's not something that I highlight that frequently, but a couple months back I started talking about this. But I don't really get into trading alts that much. But for BTC, considering the conditions it's in right now, I do think that this can be useful because we're not really seeing that moves are leading to sustained we're not seeing that impulsive moves are leading to continuation. So I'm trying to, again, take as much out of this little crabby market as possible, and getting away from VWAP, a combination of structure and these moves that are kind of outliers to play for exhaustion and mean reversion. I think any way that we can improve obviously is better. Any way that I can improve is something that I want to look into. But I mentioned that this morning on Twitter, just provide a little bit of clarity. Right now, yeah, it looks like I expect that BTC is probably going to have a little bit more of a pullback. So I got short, I got long, and I probably should have just gotten short again. I got to tell you, yeah, doing these streams and trying to pay attention to all this at the same time and hopefully take trades is not easy. My brain is kind of like having trouble keeping up with what I'm even looking at. Open a long ADA. Jam, I'm not going to give you specific advice, man. I never do that. I mean, if I'm looking at this right now, we're probably coming back to, I think, where the thick of the activity has been. So 34.5, I still think you probably retest that, but we'll see. I mean, some might say that we're starting to accept higher, but you know, we took out this high, and maybe we'll get it right now. Took out this high and have not been able to hold yesterday's high. So a lot of selling into this more recent drop, though. Starting to get some longs taking profit, it looks like. I'm looking at this right here. So you have that 8 million contracts, negative 5 million delta, but open interest dropping by around 3 million contracts. So you probably have some longs taking profit since it looks a little one-sided right now. As you can imagine, you know, if you're long lower and price breaks above yesterday's high but is struggling, you might reconsider. And the market hasn't been, the market has been range bound, which I know crypto traders have trouble with because they're always looking for breakouts. If Barry Silbert says something's bearish lately, I close. I do. But I think I actually shorted the last time Barry said something. It's never going to be, like, me recalling something like that is not going to be, it's not going to be something that I, I don't remember, honestly. I think I closed a spot position out when Barry said something, but Barry lately, I think, I don't think Barry in crypto is someone you want to fade, period. The guy has access to more information than you and I do. So if he's bearish, I don't think it's psyops. Yeah, let me just get my bearings again really quickly because I'm... Yeah, so I haven't been using this standard deviation tool enough with BTC to really put too much weight in it. But I think it might complement my scalping strategy, but we'll see. I was using this with momentum tools, just in the 1 minute chart to get a little bit more of an idea of the Pico, trying to get the Pico tops, right? Because I'm scalping, and if I'm trying to scalp with size, I can't really afford to miss even much beyond the beginning of the reversal. So I need to, for it to be worth it, if I'm not getting passively filled, which in this case I might try to hunt more wicks with limit orders, but for me to really mark it in position and still make something out of it, I need to be getting sort of the last portion of the turn before price ends up pulling back. Otherwise, you know, for example, this last trade that I had that I was short up here with, it wasn't at the high. It was at, what was it, 4824 or 29, somewhere around here, and I ended up getting out down here, right? So that's like $100 move. And with that size, it was fine. But if I'm trading full size, I need to probably be getting out with. I need to be getting out by scaling out or with a limit, because that was kind of late, right? I arguably could have left that on for a swing position, but this is not. It was not in my game plan to begin with. So I would rather at this point, if I'm looking for swings, I would rather, if I'm looking for swing shorts, let me clarify. I would rather see some kind of failure above 36 that starts falling back within this structure, or I would rather see that we end up failing below, you know, yesterday's lows and reaccepting back within, you know, underneath, as I said, 31,000. Yeah, now Adeline, the VWAP is good because it shows you where most of the risk has been tagged on, but you know, in equities trading, VWAP will be used to really define, like you said, kind of within the day, whether you're looking for longs or shorts. If you're, you know, a lot of a lot of prop guys, you'll see that they're just using something like the tape, level 2, level 3, and then something like VWAP to trade. Maybe some moving averages, but a lot of it will be based around VWAP and price action. You know, if you look at like SMB Capital or 3 Points, some more popular, well-known trading desks. But I don't think it's the most useful thing to do with BTC, especially when the market is range bound. If the market is trending hard, yeah, that could be useful, but it's not. I don't think that it's good to say like, oh, if we're just above today's VWAP, then we have to look for longs, and oh, if we've lost today's VWAP, we have to look for shorts. You have to look at the entirety of the structure we've been within, which is a much larger range overall, and we're having this kind of bracketed behavior on the low time frames, right? So a lot of the times we're just having this very tight 1 to 3% consolidations, squeeze, reversal, reaccept, squeeze, reversal, reaccept, and the breakouts are not leading to any kind of sustained continuation move, right? You're getting like consolidation, a breakout, breakdown, reversal, consolidation, breakdown, consolidation. You're not getting anything that really has follow through. And this has been the case for a really long time now, so it kind of makes sense to continue to expect that that's going to occur until it stops, right? Until you're getting blown out trade after trade, and you might have to readjust at that point. But yeah, any questions, guys? Otherwise, I would just monitor, honestly, the 1 minute time frame, but I know you guys don't want me to just stare at this chart. On Quant Tower, I have a tick chart set up, so this is my go-to on QT. So the tick chart that I have set is usually it's a 200 tick or a 500 tick, and the 500 is closer to the 1 minute time frame. It depends though, right? Because those two are not related, right? 1 minute can pass and you can have 100 trades. 1 minute can pass and you can have 1,000 trades. But what I like to do is make sure that I'm really capturing rotation sizes and price movement depending on, I'll be adjusting the tick size, or the if I'm using a reversal chart, I'll be adjusting that if price behavior is changing, right? I'm trying to capture the movement as best as possible so that I can trade it as best as possible. But right now I'm looking at on TradingView they don't have any of these charts, but on QT they do. On XO they have it as well. So let's see. I mean, if you're trading the 1 minute chart, you could play sweeps all day, right? So just anticipate that this is going to be a range that continues, right? So we didn't take this we took this earlier, but if I was paying attention, I would have been taking this trade again, right? So sweep above this high, I'll probably take that trade again. Okay, so let's see if we squeeze above 35. Now the trouble is, the more that we squeeze upward, the more likely it might be that we're breaking out of yesterday's range, right? So I'm looking at the footprint right now because you have some aggression coming in, but price is stalling a little bit already. What we're looking at is I want to see what happens once we get up to 35. If we get that high, I'll tag on a little bit harder this time. And footprint, you're getting some zero prints up here already. So it's kind of a squeeze so far. So I don't want to get into position early here because it's likely that if we're on our way up right now, we'll blow out that high rather than just stopping before it. So I think it's unlikely that, so we're zeroing out a little bit. So you're having some sort of thin movement. But we're back above yesterday's high. And while this could be the start of it rotating back lower, it's not a really good area for me to define a position, because ideally I would rather define one here where we pop up above, I get short, And then I'm much more confident at that point if I see volume above there and we're trading back within this micro range. Because at that point, you know, if we break above that high, so if we're above this high, right, we break down, and then we're above yesterday's high, and then we continue to hold this high, then I'm getting out of the trade right there, because I think that it's probably going to, at that point, squeeze up, you know, to 35.5. So let's see. But in this kind of micro range, I want to see that it pokes above this high. So we're getting, again, we're getting some, it looks like shorts are closing out. So you're getting a squeeze. Open interest, delta positive, open interest dropping. So you're squeezing shorts right here, which is not really the move, which is not really, you know, the most organic way to have a breakout. You know, you might start off that way, but you want to see that buyers continue to come in. I'm not looking at my tape right now because I can't have it on the screen because I have OBS, but I'd be able to tell who's getting more aggressive, spot or futures. So let's see. I think we're going to pop up above these highs. But now after taking this low, the danger is that this move can lead to continuation. Okay. Stalling. Looks like it's going to squeeze up. Yeah. All right, so happy we didn't get behind that. So now we're above yesterday's high. Too thin now. The XO right now is too large. Coming into resistance, right? So being mindful of that. Next area of resistance is 35.5. So do you want to get short, start scaling into a short up here? I mean, so I'm not used to having the VWAP bands on, so normally I would just scale in and out. And I don't like the way the chart gets all, I don't know, busy. But, oh, here we go. I forgot I have this set up over here without it. Okay. Not an area where I want to get long right here. Because, again, we're so close to resistance. Shit, I should have the same drawings on the same chart. I duplicated this chart so that I could have one with the bands on, one without, so I could observe at the same time. I was just kind of doing, as I said this morning, R&D. I would rather see that we poke up to 36 before getting short. Because you have some selling coming in, but price is holding. Looks like some longs are taking profit now. But it's just, I feel like with this is kind of a magnet up there. Sorry guys, I have to scale. I have to change that. I normally have my quant tower higher time frame chart set up and then the tick chart right next to that, so I don't have to continue to adjust things. But for the sake of the stream, I have to do this. And this would be, and this is why having a good setup is good, because if you're trying to trade like this, going in and out of things like this, you wouldn't be able to trade the low time frames. So that's why it's making it kind of difficult. But so let's see, are we going to break back? If we break back within yesterday's range now, so if we lose yesterday's high, we'll see. Maybe we have a little 1-2 up here. I mean, you have selling coming in, but it looks like longs taking profits. I should have taken that, but it is what it is. Pull the chat up real quick. There was a 500 BTC ask at Coinbase. Let me see some real quick. It must have been gone now. I mean, there's 232 at 36,100 or around there. Kind of shared across exchanges too. 36,294 on Binance, but I you know, I'm not really going to be looking at that per se when I'm looking at something like this. I haven't been looking at this the last couple of days either because it's just been this way. Meaning what I'm about to say has been this way. It's been a sustained spot premium. So that's good, but I haven't been needing to really focus on that because I've seen it next to my on TradingView. I've seen that we've been trading at a premium just from looking at Bybit compared to Coinbase, and that's kind of just been the way it has been. That 500 BTC ask is not there anymore, and I don't know if I would give too much weight to that unless, you know, price is coming up to that level and we're seeing across exchanges that it's staying and sticking, and you know, we're actually seeing orders hit into it and it replenish or something like that. Otherwise, I don't really like to just go off of the resting orders. I don't think it's that actionable. I think you're going to have some type of 1, 2, 3 pattern up into this resistance, and then maybe we'll get another opportunity to throw on a short. Because right now, I mean, while this is a bullish move above yesterday's high, the conditions so far up to this point have been range behavior, squeeze outside of range, grab liquidity both sides. You know, then you finally get an expansion, and then it leads to another micro range that forms, rather than like what I think a lot of people do is where they assume like, oh my God, this is going to lead to the strong trending move and I have to be in that right now, when all that price has been doing up to this point has been showing that nothing has been sustained, right? So I almost want to short this just because it is close enough to resistance, and I don't think that this is going to be the move that takes us up. Now we have some buying at the bottom on futures. I'm going to go ahead and tag a short on real quick. Let me move this chart. Fuck, I already... I need it. I would rather it squeeze up a little bit more. We're going to tag some on. Whoops. Okay. So we'll see if we can get filled a little bit further up for more of a swing in this case, just for taking a swing on the live stream, just because this 36 level is a pretty good area to define a position. You know, if I am going to scale into a swing, I know that I'm willing to scale a little bit further up, because if we break out above here, then, you know, I'm completely wrong. Whereas I could end up tagging on a position local to resistance, and I would anticipate at that point, you know, I anticipate that we're still, I don't think that this is the breakout, so put it that way. I think that we're likely to return back somewhere around this point of control, right around 3,400, 34,000. I keep fucking saying that wrong. So this looks so busy when everything is so squeezed for the live stream. See the chat real quick. Okay. So tagged on, partial position. I don't think this is the squeeze that takes us much further up, but we'll see. If we have a little bit more of a pullback right now, and we start holding yesterday's high, then that'll be a different story. But I'll let this develop for a second. And go through the chat. Yeah, I'm not going to check out Ethereum Platinum, so I won't kick you out, but yeah, we don't take any spam in here. I don't know if I'll call yours spam yet. I don't know if you've said anything else about it. Sharing similar thoughts, like this run up, like last week's sim. Yeah. Georgette, yeah, I got so many DMs on Twitter. I apologize for people that I don't get back to. Sometimes I literally find messages that, you know, the problem is, like, I look at my Twitter DMs and they're separated, because if I don't follow you, I can't get your message the way I would get someone else's message. So I have to go through it's a separate folder, obviously. I think everyone has the same kind of setting. And then I see like hundreds of messages that are so clearly spam. Like right in the little preview, it'll say like, you know, something along the lines of a coin or something, and I immediately know that, and then those are just piling up. And then occasionally I'll have a message from somebody, you know, frequently rather, and it'll be like a genuine question, and I'll miss them for a while, and I apologize for that. I just get so many messages. But if you want to message me, you know, tell me your tell me your Twitter name, and I'll go ahead and make sure that I prioritize checking that out. So we're up in profit right now. That's good. So entry right now for this short right here. But for this kind of move, so this is just the sort of second spike above yesterday's high. I kind of feel like you get another spike up, but we'll let it ride, and I'll see if we do spike up. I'll add a little bit more just because it is in a good area to kind of open up a swing, just to show you how I think. Oh, okay, yeah, I'll post on Twitter. All right. All right. I used Agger version 3, but for some reason now it's not working on my computer. So, not sure why. Nothing pulls up. Nothing comes up when I use it. So let's see if this trade will drop. We'll have 3 scalps on the stream. It'll be 3 for 3. But this would be more of a swing. But yeah, I think you get the idea. Meaning if we break down from here, I'll probably look to add and hold. But anyway, so what was I saying? Where did that go? It's okay, Riley. I appreciate that. Thanks for apologizing. We just so how do you go about defining risk, reward, stop loss, and flow scalping? So I don't usually use a stop loss when I'm scalping. I will probably scale out or immediately get out of the trade once it starts to go past my entry beyond a certain point, which is usually, if I'm entering based on something like, for example, the footprint, which in this case, if we look at this footprint, as I was saying earlier, you kind of have this exhaustive push, right? So you have this exhaustive push. So it's pretty thin, right? You do have some aggression towards the highs. It's not like the best setup where you have like such an obvious participant that's trapped. But if I'm getting in based on a trappy setup, right? So, push up to the highs. This probably spikes up right now. Push up to the highs, and we see that, let's say that there's like 7 million contracts right here sold, or excuse me, bought. It's above a key level, swing failure above a level that is, to the left, let's say. Price tries to return to that level and fails. Well, then that is one of my triggers, right? That along with structure. I know that there's a ton of aggression up into this pocket. They're trapped. I'm expecting a certain size move based off that alone. Good. We're ticking away in profit nicely. That is one of my triggers. So if we're trading above that, I like to personalize it and think, okay, so that guy got in 7 million contracts. He's feeling really shitty now as price moves away from his entry. If we're back above his entry, well, suddenly he's in better position again. And one of my trade ideas is obviously based on the idea of people getting trapped. If they're no longer trapped, right, the trade just lost a little bit of merit or a little bit of fuel in my eyes. Think about it as fuel, right? So I will try to scale out at that point. Maybe I'll hold on to it slightly longer. Maybe after we come back above this guy's entry, we trap someone a second time. All right, so I'm probably going to give it a little bit of breathing room, but I'll be scaling out of positions. Scaling out position if I can, or just immediately exiting once I see, so here's an example. This guy's trapped, right? This is a swing failure above a more recent high. And then price comes back up to this level, and now you get some selling coming in on the left side, something like this, and it's above that area. Okay, so dynamic has kind of flipped at that point. The bid is walking up and is supportive of this higher price now. Not only is he in better position, but guess what? Anyone who's selling this level right here, the bid is more than accommodative of their positioning, right? So we're going to be coming back down to the daily high, it looks like. I don't want to keep any swings on that I didn't intend on getting in, so I'm just going to exit this position. I usually have 2 ladders. Okay. Take off a little bit. So I just bought a little bit back, but price is not responding at all. All right, so that's a good sign. Okay, so you're looking at the footprint right here, and I just bought back 100,000 contracts. Someone else just bought back another 100,000 contracts, or bought. So price is not responding at all. It's kind of like this wants to puke a little bit more. Let's see. If it ticks up, I'm just going to close out. But we're in profit right now. We just made about $1,000. No. So whenever I bought back half of that position, price didn't respond at all. It's almost like this wants to drop a little bit longer back to the daily open, or rather to yesterday's high. Trap some traders right there, and then maybe we'll see it tick back up. But right now, so 1 million hitting the bid, but still price not going bid above that. Now, let's see this area right here, that 38,000. If we see that starts getting hit and price isn't moving up, this is just more an indication of me that, you know, there's buyers are not having any kind of impact on price. And anyone who's willing to walk this down is more than willing to take that liquidity, to take that flow. I see. Normally I'd be watching the tape while doing this, but for the sake of the stream, we are all like everything. Oh, I have to move around a ton of stuff whenever I do a stream. I don't like to do this when I'm trading. All right. Doing this, okay, I'm getting out. Doing this, looking, you know, left and right. That to me is you have to look at everything as time that is spent, either time spent well or time wasted. And something where I have to look at the screen. So normally my tapes are set up on the left. And guys, I'm constantly trying to optimize things. Normally my tapes are set up on the left and I have the sound on. So you'll hear this. So this is the futures tape that you're going to hear in a second. So 1 sec. You might not hear it yet because I might have the audio might not be. Okay, you do hear it. So that bass that you hear is the spot tape, which in this case is selling right now. All right. Now this next tape is a futures tape. Okay. So I have them separated because I don't necessarily need to look at the tape if I'm looking at the footprint as well, right? But what I do want to know is, because I can't keep eyes on everything, is if we are, you know, let's say for example, we're breaking back above a key daily level. We're at a major, you know, majorly important level. Let's say for example, we break back down below 31, or let's say we're breaking above 36, you know, midpoint. A lot of eyes on the chart at that level. You know, a lot of people that have some type of midpoint level that they're focusing on. You know, it's one of those things where if a lot of people look at it and a lot of people consider an area to take profit, then you probably should too. If there's a lot of people that are looking at this area to act as support, then you might want to consider that too. So let's say we're breaking above 36. It's probably going to be pretty important to me that I hear that spot activity, right? Versus break above 36 and it's all, you know, it's all this. When that starts running and I don't hear any kind of spot coming, and mind you, I don't have to look at it because I'll hear it. When that starts running, that's not the kind of thing that I want to hear. I want to hear that the spot market is getting behind the breakout. Now, when the spot market runs, right? So when spot gets behind the breakout, you're going to hear both. It's going to be like this cacophony of spot and futures, because you're not going to have, you know, when you have a breakout and spot market is getting behind it, those larger spot players a lot of the times, or larger spot players in general, right? Some of them, excuse me, will have their positioning tied up with futures as well. So they'll have an algo on futures or an algo on the futures exchange where if they're getting positioned in spot, they will also be executing on the futures exchange as well. So a lot of times you won't have it where, say for example, like the spot market starts ripping, you only hear the spot tape and there's no futures tape. It's either both of them or just one of them. And when it's just one of them, it is just the futures tape. So you ideally want to see that in a breakout that the spot market is very supportive of the breakout. If we have a breakout, let's say, for example, and just to give you an idea how you can personalize this, you have the break of this high, for example, and we didn't have it on before, and you just hear the futures tape ripping, no spot tape. You see on, the futures footprint, and which is just one exchange, right? We're just looking at this one on Bybit, but with the futures tape is aggregated. You see that there's a ton of aggression. You know that the move is really just being bought up by swap traders. Fucking A. Sticky mouth when you talk too long on a live stream. But that's a really useful thing for me to focus on, because I want to see that any kind of sustained move is being followed by the spot market. Hopefully that makes sense. Should make sense. So let's see what we have going on up here. I think it would be rare for this to lead to a just drop from here. So I pulled the position off. I would expect more development. Maybe you get a sweep of this low, poke back up, range a little bit longer. But we'll see. Looks like swaps are buying the dip right here, though. So as I was saying, that wasn't having really a material impact on price. When I closed half of my position out, the footprint didn't do shit. And usually if you're at the bottom of a move, a little bit of buying is going to tick price up, right? Because at that point, who's going to want to be selling that or providing liquidity or providing an offer if we're at the bottom, right? Because the next move at the bottom is ticking up. So you don't want to be selling to enter a position at the bottom, providing an offer, providing an ask. So usually you'll see that the offer will not follow price down there. And because of that, when you have a little bit of buying come into the market, there's no pressure. It's not a thick area. There's impact even with smaller order sizes. If it is only futures driven, if it is like obviously only futures driven, and this is where varying levels of volume stand out in volume and delta. If you have a move that is like, I know it based on sizes at this point. If we have, an excess of 10 million contracts traded above a swing high, price just came through vertically, like I'm 100% slamming that as hard as I can, as soon as I can, meaning taking the opposite side of it. If that is entirely futures driven. If it's not futures driven, I don't want to fade it, because spot market is what actually is responsible for the more sustained moves. So I don't only use Quant Tower. I will have the exchange open as well in a browser window just in case. Like when we started the stream, for some reason when I hit flatten, it didn't flatten out my position. So I had to go on to the actual other Quant Tower window that I have and just hit the X. I don't want to have to do that when I'm in, when I'm trying to take a trade. Hold on one sec. Okay. So it looks like we're having a little bit of an issue above yesterday's high. But I'm out of that position. I'd rather have another spike up than get short right here. Let's see. Ideally on the low time frames, if I'm going to be scalping something like this, where we have this, squeeze up, pull back. One, I'd rather play these lows again, and two, I'd rather see something more along the lines of this forming. Right? We have some type of bounce. Like let's say that this resolves upward, right? And then I'll probably look to play this right here, and then probably play back to the midpoint of this structure. Versus trying to just assume this is the one, because you usually just have a sweep of the lows. Right after a low gets established, you get a little bit of a move. This is, let's say the apex is right here. Price will take out this low. A lot of the times you'll see you'll at least get a return back here. you know, and then price will just go on a crab longer. So if I'm not going to get that here, if I was looking for another long opportunity, it might exist down here. So 34.6 area for a sweep of that, this low. And that's back within the prior day's range. But that just goes to show you could take these little scalps, even though, you know, technically, if we're back within yesterday's range, and this is a failed breakout, then I'd probably assume we're going to come down lower, right? But I could take all these little trades in between, and with a sub account, you know, tag on maybe a more meaningful swing short position. Though I don't think this is an area that I would want to tag on like a meaningful swing short position, just because we're closer to the bottom of a range than we are to the high, and yeah, we are kind of reaccepted back within. So rather than me monitor like a swing short that might be an intraday position, I'd rather just trade around this price action and be exposed with a certain amount of spot BTC on perps, because I do think that we come up higher, but I do think that it'll take a little bit more activity for us to get there. I just don't like, I don't necessarily, I didn't like yesterday's activity enough to really just deploy on my spot again, put it that way. I'd rather, as I said, so I know this might get confusing from time to time, because I'm saying, in the beginning I'm saying I don't really like this, but I'm saying that I do think we're going to come higher. I think that for me, I'd rather see that we have a defense of these lows, right? I'd rather see we pulled back to like, I'd rather see, honestly, we pulled back to like 32.5, right? This low right here, it just stands out to me as a low that would be unlikely to get left behind. So, you know, 31.8, 32.5 area. Okay, somewhere down here where you have that, and then that looks like a oh fuck level, and then you have a, you know, you have a further squeeze upward. And this daily level, so maybe you get something like this, wick down below, close above the daily level. Just a couple ideas that I'm thinking of. You know, if we have any kind of structure that's built above here, you know, today's daily close I think is going to be pretty telling. So we'll see. But it's into resistance. So there's a lot to think of, unfortunately. Okay. So let's see. I'm doing the giveaway for yesterday today, I said. So I have to give people 24 hours at least to comment on it. I can't just do the giveaway immediately. Or BS. Yeah, I do the giveaways so that I get people to watch the stream. No, we've given away, Josh and I have given away a fucking ridiculous amount of Bitcoin in the last 2 years. Put it that way. All right, one sec. Well, Marcellus, volume, you know, implies a market order is met with a limit order, so you need both of those. Backwardation premium, aid in your strategies. Well, that's more along the lines of how it affects my longer term positioning, or maybe position trades or higher time frame swing trades. For this to be the bottom, one of the conditions that I want to see is being met. You know, we had, let's just see it real quick. The other day, CME was trading in backwardation, but it very quickly improved. So if we look at just the CME, the other day into the low, right after the low, this was the CME. It was down, right? So futures contracts were trading in backwardation, okay? Very quickly that was bought up and we're back into contango. You know, I could say that at these lows, the kind of behavior we would want to see in positioning on the higher time frame has been met. You know, we have been at nearly flat basis. Futures contracts have been trading, again, more along the lines of spot, barely any kind of premium. Funding has been very negative. So that it doesn't like make it a surefire signal for me, but it definitely adds to the confidence of thinking that this might, again, I think that ultimately overall, we're going to be coming back up here. I am very, very skeptical of the idea that this kind of move, right, after a, you know, 55+% drop, doesn't at least come up to the halfway point between the high and the low. Like you'll always, I don't think this has occurred, right? Without any kind of major news catalyst, big change, without the pandemic kind of event, where you won't have a return back to this level. And then maybe, who knows what happens from there. Maybe it returns up here, fails, and then we get the 2018 all over again. But it's highly unlikely that at some point we don't get a return back here. I just need the proper setup for me to get long, right? And it's really, honestly, the trouble I'm having, because the condition I set has kind of been met. If you remember, my condition was, I drew this on Twitter, was that either for me to get long, and this is going back to back here when I was saying this, we need to either break above and hold, all right, or break below and reclaim. One thing that I said was I would rather have something like this where even if we broke above and didn't hold, that we swept these lows, versus the idea that this was just going to lead to a breakout, you know, and resumption from there. Very rarely do you see that lows get left untested, right? So this is kind of satisfying that stipulation. It's just that yesterday's activity after the move was not the kind of, you know, it was more along the lines of shorts getting squeezed. There's not a, you know, it doesn't look like there's a tremendous amount of strength behind the move. So that could be my mistake, that I end up getting into this a little bit later than I could have. But I was long off of the low. I closed that out. I should have fucking held that, but that's always, you're always going to do that, right? Meaning that I opened up spot down here and then I closed it out. But this is starting to look like it might set up that play. Okay. And that would be awesome. But I would still consider this as resistance. I wouldn't say that this is going to lead to this. It takes a long time. It takes a lot longer than people always think. You know, if you go back to 2018, it was like everyone thought right here was going to be, you know, everyone thought that this was, you know, oh my God, it's treating this as support again. This is going to go up here. And then when this happened, it was like, okay, no, now it's a W bottom. Now it's kind of this Adams and Eve, more like structure, high volatility, lower volatility correction. Now we're going to do this. And no one could foresee that it would take forever to get back there. So I don't want to make that same mistake. All right. Things are absolutely different now. You can't deny it. The way the world has been accepting of crypto, and we have a lot more. Look at this, moving back up. That's nice. Maybe we'll take another trade. Let's see. Maybe we'll have this 1, 2, 3 drive. Just looking at the footprint in the tape real quick. See, that futures tape is going kind of nutty. That's Bitstamp. I don't want to chart on that. And that resistance is sitting right above us. You have some people right now, though, taking this trade probably right off of that up to that 35.5, 36 level. So, but there's just not a whole lot of oomph behind it. I mean, if you get something like this where you have 1, 2, we poke up and then you start trading back below here, then that's probably it. See, I'm messing around with this, but I don't like busy charts. So what I'm gonna do is, one, I have to pay. I have to like play with this for a while. And this is just because of the way things are crabby. I'm really not looking to. I'm honestly looking to get involved at the sort of, like I said, the best locations to take these sort of Pico top scalps, Pico low scalps. Pico's like stuck in my name, my word late, Jesus, my fucking, my head lately. But I'm gonna have to change the opacity of this because it's like kind of obnoxious how many things I have on the chart right now, and I like really clean charts. And this is just one window that I'll have open because I'll be looking at the tick chart on QT to see the actual development on the low time frame. Yeah. Okay. I don't keep trades open overnight. I haven't kept them open overnight in a really long time. I rarely do. It's too much of a gamble. I just don't like it. It doesn't allow me to sleep. I stopped doing that a while ago. I stayed in spot for a really long time, but after the breakdown, there's no way that I want to stay in trades overnight. I do give away the. I've given away the course a couple times. I'll do that for next stream. I'll make sure I list it for that reason too, or I just tell people in advance we'll be doing that. Stops we run below 32.3 yesterday. Mousetrap, yeah, mousetraps are always nice. Yeah, I want to see what happens after quarterlies expire. That could be pretty telling because the last couple of expiries for quarterly futures contracts have been pretty violent. 130 BTC bought today, all-time high buy. I mean, not really. I don't think that's an all-time high buy. If you look at Coinbase, it's a couple hundred BTC that was sold, and price didn't really have. There wasn't a whole lot of liquidity below that. That was back here. This was over 100 BTC right here sold on CB. I don't think 130 is an all-time high buy. That's kind of low. Tomorrow is the expiration, 25th. I think I might wrap it up, guys. Okay, so I will do the giveaway today. So I think yesterday's stream, I don't remember what time it was. It was later on. So I have to let 24 hours pass because I think it's fair. And then tonight I'll do the giveaway for that that stream. If you leave a comment below yesterday's stream, you could be entered into it as well. How about that? But yeah, and then the next live stream I'll do will be, I want to do a separate live stream where I just trade and I don't really focus on the chat or anything on the high time frame because it's really, it kind of throws you off when I'm scalping and then I go look at the high time frame. It's like I'm not going to be doing that while I'm scalping. I already have an idea of where all the levels are. I'm never going to be like constantly telling myself where they are and going over that every single day. That doesn't really change. So we'll figure out a stream format where I'm only really trading. Maybe we'll have some nice music on in the background. But yeah, I'm going to be messing around with this. It's nothing really special. It's just, again, it's VWAP standard deviation bands. When we get 2-3 standard deviations away, especially in this kind of crabby environment, this with a combination of the footprint and a combination of market structure, I think could be pretty useful. And I'm going to find out how useful it is. A lot of people use this, so I'm not saying that it definitely is, but it's not something that I normally incorporate with BTC. Usually with BTC, I just have a VWAP on, and I will more or less be, eyeballing the distance away we are, and the distance we are away from it, and I'll be focusing on a lot of other things first. The only time I was using standard deviation bands was for alts, but I think that it might be valuable to take it out right now. So, all right, guys, that's it. Until next time, I will talk to you soon. Everyone have a fantastic day. And yeah, take care.